Tapping in.
Are we live?
Southside Chicago, to be exact. Stony Island, what's up? You know what it is. But off of that, right, when you get to the US, one thing you realize, like, man, there's a lot of drug ads on TV. It's crazy. Like, you don't necessarily get that in other places, right? Maybe you get the odd painkiller or these energizer tablets, right? But it's not so incestuous as it is on US TV, where it's just like constant ads. You're like, what is going on? But under that, there's this whole big pharma industrial complex, right? That's putting people at bay, and that putting people at risk. And from that, this opioid crisis is stemming.
Yeah, you said it, man. Big pharma is a major force in the US in terms of lobbying, in terms of ad space, and taking up the public conscious. It's big business, selling people pills, and we're feeling the weight of that, right? A couple of weeks ago, the CDC announced that 100,000 people over the past 12 months have died or overdosed, right? And I guess it should be clear that overdose can be different than death, right? Not everybody who overdoses dies, but over 100,000 people in a 12-month span have overdosed, right? And well, actually, my bad. I think they might be speaking about deaths, because the next part of the fact here from the CDC is that this record of 100,000 people is more than the toll from car accidents and gun deaths combined in the U.S.
Damn.
Right.
Damn.
So that gives me the sense that maybe they are speaking about deaths, but the point still stands that that overdose can be different than death. You can be revived from an overdose with medical attention, including Narcan, which people should know about, right? That's something that you can carry around, kind of like an EpiPen for allergies, Narcan for overdoses. So just keep that in mind. So
I just want to stop you there, and I don't mean to cut you or make light of the situation, but saying carrying anti-drug overdose medicine as the same way as you'd carry an allergy pill is crazy.
No, I said an EpiPen, like a
same thing. Though.
I feel you.
Same thing,
you. Yeah, but it's not though, because and this speaks to exactly how you kind of brought us in through the transition, right? It's about caring for people. So I'm not saying it's everybody's responsibility to walk around with Narcan, but I'm saying that, like, it's a thing to be aware of, right? If you find yourself in an emergency medical situation, is there any Narcan around? If you're asking the store owner, the person that runs the establishment, wherever you find yourself happen to be, right? I think a couple episodes ago on this podcast, I spoke to the incident at the amusement park where me and the young lady, and she was able to perform the Heimlich maneuver to save somebody, right? Boom. You're at an amusement park. You're at a sporting event. Somebody's having an episode. It's good to be able to know what to ask for, right? So, yeah, I'm not saying everybody should carry that around in their purse, you know what I'm saying? But or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
I was speaking more towards the craziness of the fact that something like that needing to be around. That speaks to the prevalence of the issue. You know what I mean? It speaks to the prevalence of the issue. Like, for instance, if I told you go to this place, you need to carry around fly swatter everywhere because there's massive cockroaches, you'd be like, dude, how many cockroaches are there that you need to always have a fly swatter within reach? You know what I mean? It just speaks towards just how prevalent this issue really is in the US. And one of the numbers I was able to pull from it is that in this town in West Virginia has 2 million people in it. Over the course of 3 years, over 650 million pills were prescribed towards that city alone. You know what I mean? And these are all essentially methamphetamine based, if you will, which there's a whole science to it. Miles, break down the science to it.
We were supposed to have Dr. Will on this episode.
Damn.
We'll make sure that we hook you up with Booch Not Beer, who can answer all of your health and substance-based questions. But for now, I think we'll focus on just the fact that, like you said, man, this is extremely prevalent. It's prompting a very serious response from communities that have been affected by this, right? So you mentioned Virginia. Last month in northeastern Ohio, 2 counties, Lake and Trumbull, took CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart to federal court. During the 6-week trial, the counties argued that the pharmacies did nothing to stop the flow of an estimated over 140 million pills that led to hundreds of overdose deaths, and that the crisis has cost each county $1 billion, right? So they took, and these are big companies. These are recognizable every corner companies, man. CVS, Walmart, Walgreens. This is a response that's very interesting. And just as before, you wanted to make sure not to make light of the situation because there's a lot of people whose lives have been severely affected by this. I don't want to make light of this or detract from the seriousness of this conversation when I say that it's interesting where the blame gets placed depending on who the afflicted community is. And it's interesting that in this case, we're able to go up the ladder to say and blame it on the companies, and not the people that are using the drugs, the communities in which the drugs are to be found, right?
Yeah.
So that's we're going to the source on this one, right? Because the source might have something in common with the affected community. Whereas when the affected community is black, it's the black people's fault. Just saying. All right. So that is not lost upon me. This is a black podcast. We got to make sure that we call out racism when we see it. Now, go ahead. I know you want to.
Very quickly, a little bit of a sidebar. Every time I see the number 100 million, I think about old boy from Tesla who got away with that 100 million. Every time I see the number 100 million, like, damn, they gave that man $100 million. Anyways, there is that weird thing about where blame is put. And if, again, giving a little bit of history, right, into this is the history of America's relationship with drugs, is that the drug issue and the drug society in the U.S. is closely related to the prison industrial complex. So this big pharma industrial complex is very closely related to the prison industrial complex, because you see within there a lot of people that are in jail are drug offenders, are related towards drug related arrests. That's a pretty big majority of the people that are in American prisons, right? So in that respect, you have this war on drugs, which is looking at stamping out those types of dealers. But then you look on this side, which is what you're now speaking towards, is that you have people that are dying more than gun violence and car accidents combined off of these drugs. However, because it is big pharma, the responsibility doesn't get pushed there. And I think it's quite easy to break down the reason behind that, because you know that these big pharma is one of the largest lobby groups in the US.
Well, no, they are putting the responsibility on big pharma, and that's good. That's where it should be placed. I'm just saying, when it was the government that was bringing the drugs in that fueled the crack epidemic, and I understand we didn't go at the government, didn't go after the government, but I'm just saying there's a lack of accountability in that situation at the expense of a community where that often happens to be the case, right? But conspiracy over, right? Because they are holding
That's
these.
not a conspiracy that actually happened.
Yeah, right. Conspiracy. I'm taking my my coffee off, and I'm just kind of, all right. You know what I'm saying? We can discuss that, but I want to get through the rest of what happened here. So the big pharma companies, well, not even big pharma, right? Because these are the distributors. This is CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart, right? So actually, we haven't even gotten to the people that are manufacturing this, right? But so a jury has weighed in on this case, right? 2 Ohio counties sued these three corporations. The jury was able to deliberate and weighed in, and it unanimously found that the chains helped fuel the crisis. This is a historic ruling. In fact, in the sense that it's the first time a jury's been able to weigh in on an opioid case. Federal judges have settled previous suits, including with Purdue Pharma, big pharma right there, and Johnson & Johnson. It is also the first time pharmacies have actually finished a trial to defend themselves. What that says to me is that there's been a lot of out of court case that has been settling for sure. The first time that they've actually finished a trial to defend themselves, right? Or they've been shelling out cash, or people that are suing them are running out of cash. And that's what speaks to when you try and take on these big, huge companies, right? So they were found liable, and a U.S. district judge will decide how much they owe the two counties. The two counties said it was $1 billion each. So we'll see how much they get compared to that.
But I mean, look, dude, it's real simple when it comes to the case of the U.S., right? The reason why I'm getting a lot of echo feedback from your side.
Mike Chickadee, how that?
A lot better. The reason why even the court procedure of why these things are not being able to get done, it just speaks towards like, there's always a hypothetical, they run the country, they run the government, and like people don't necessarily understand what that they is, right? Because we're speaking in these big hypothetical terms, but like the reality of it is like the massive lobby groups that essentially fund the government and fund and dictate which political parties and people are the ones that are going to be in power, because they're the ones that are the biggest lobby groups. They dictate the way that rules go. And in almost every large issue that the U.S. is going to, you can almost tether that back into the value that lobby group has in the government, essentially, right? So, for instance, one of the big issues in the U.S. obviously is gun control and gun distribution and the laws behind it. And people might ask, why is it so hard for the Americans to just grasp and put small things in towards gun legislation that could have significant reduction in the number of mass shootings that we're seeing and things of that nature? Well, the NRA is the largest lobbyist group in the US. So obviously, when you have accountability and what accountability means to an organization of that size and its value to the government, things are going to be a little bit different. It's the same thing with Big Pharma. Big Pharma is the third largest lobbying group in the US, right? So why is it that Big Pharma is allowed to utilize these mass Walmart stations as essentially, if anybody has seen The Wire, this is what young Michael B. Jordan is. You know what I'm saying? He gets the work and then they distribute it, right? Obviously, these guys are liable too. But why we've seen an incompletion of the law to be able to hold them accountable, definitely money is involved in that in terms of paying people off on the side, like you're saying. But you also have to understand that these are the people that own the government. And that's just as per their contribution towards it, man. So this is America's sins coming back to haunt it, dude. This is a direct response into what happens when you have corporate interests at the heart of regulation. And what happens then is that you get this sort of overprescription of drugs that then leads to people being addicted, leads to people being in more jails, fueling an industrial complex. Dude, these guys, they were saying there's enough prescribed drugs in the US to kill everybody 11 times over.
I would like my share, please. No, I'm just kidding. Not to die, obviously, audience. Don't worry about me.
To party, come on. To party.
To offset future medical expenses, right? But I think, like, to bring this back to like the human element, and
That's such inappropriate music playing in the background. I apologize. Have Jamaican music playing, talking about the opioid epidemic.
That
That's
really
ridiculous.
took me out of it, dude.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. We were getting so serious. I apologize, man. That's totally me.
No.
But like now that we're here,
yeah, no, I'm happy to
man.
bring the joy back into it. Like reggae vibes for everybody, I think, is a good prescription for after this podcast. But I want to bring it back to that human element of just being like, yo, this is like people have lost friends, family members, like siblings, like people have struggled like over this without even having to lose someone, right? Just like having somebody who's addicted. So I think it's important to just remember that like what we want to have happen is for people to be held accountable, but not only to have people to blame, but to have some type of pathway to repair the harm that has been done. And I don't know how you do that with so many people that have been affected, right? Like you can lean into rehabilitation programs and making that stuff available. And if I can be brutally honest, that even that makes me feel like that's really tough even for me to say, because I feel like I wish that would have been the response when the Black community needed help, right? To treat this as a public health problem rather than a problem of criminality and illicit drug use. But that is what needs to happen, is that we need to treat the people that have been afflicted by this opioid epidemic as people that need care, people that need to be rehabilitated. And so whatever comes of this settlement, which I hope is substantial, and I hope that we continue to go up the chain to the other the companies that are manufacturing these drugs, to see how accurate they've been in acknowledging the dangers of addiction and the dangers associated with the prescribing these drugs to certain people. I want that accountability, but I want whatever is implemented to not only benefit the specific communities that are more likely to be affected by the opioid epidemic than were affected by the crack epidemic, that are continue to be affected by disinvestment and disenfranchisement. I want to see healing for everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, like, bro, we are a part of this opioid generation. Like, we were in college when this thing was really it reached its peak, in at least from the studies that I've been reading, is that in 2012 was really when it came to a big crescendo, right? And you're too in college.
But isn't that funny that you saying like that's when I read that it peaked, because like in that context, I can remember some instances that reminded me of that was going on. But it also reminded me of like, if we don't do the same drugs, my guy, then it's very easy to be like, I don't see what's going on with you, right? If I'm content with, if these are my vices and this is the lane that I stay in, and I don't veer off into this other stuff, it's very easy for me to not know what's going on with you and your community. And I think that works against us when we need empathy to move forward and understanding to move forward, you know?
Bro, and these addictions, man, they start, especially like in college, these are such formative years, right? Like, you obviously, hormones, especially in young men, are pushing for extremes of things. That's why young men ingest a lot of gore videos, pornography, drugs experimentation. Like, that is all part of like the developing brain in order to like
now, brother,
testosterone.
Testify now. I know what you was going with that testify now. I think you brought up something to the congregation that needs to be brought forward. That was a little very specific, my guy. You said that's why young men engage in what now?
I said in drugs.
What else?
In pornography.
One more time.
In drugs.
No, I heard something else in there. I heard what's gore, my dude? Break that
gore.
Down. Gore videos. Break that down to me.
Man, gore videos, that's like videos of people dying, videos of people getting beheaded, just extremely graphic videos, right? And there's a bunch of sites that put that up. And as a young dude, bro, like you really are drawn towards that type of thing, right? And I can speak for myself if I'm being open and vulnerable on this platform of ours. It was not until this week, the video where the terrible video in Wisconsin where the guy drives over all of those people, killing those people in that rampage. After
Mm.
seeing that video, I really said to myself, man, I think I'm completely done watching gore videos. I can't watch that type of thing anymore. It's crazy. And I had a high palate for it when I was younger.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, right, like over the past 5 years or so, the like how the technology of phone cameras has captured so much that we've all, I think, been exposed to something that makes us feel like, I need to be more cautious about clicking that video that's attached to that story, right? Whether it's
Mm.
the police violence that's been happening in the U.S. or even the Travis Scott Astro World, like some of that footage, like
That was
there's
horrible.
I think we are overexposed to that. But yes, say a little bit more about, how you feel like that connects to those other areas that you mentioned, pornography and all of that stuff. How we might have some allure to that, but it needing to have its proper place.
Yeah, and I think and that's all from testosterone drive, right? It's also the same drive of just being very sexually you're trying to hook up with as many people as you can. It all kind of like boils down to the same sort of testosterone pushing um endorphins that are essentially pumping through. But this is the thing about the brain, right? In those formative years, you're able to form habits that you then are not able to step away from, and you carry it with you through your grown life, right? We know many grown men that are children. We know many grown men that are children, right? Still having the same habits that we had as teenagers or as early 20s, right? Same thing with the drug addiction. Like we all start together experimenting. We're in college, it's cool. You take something to help you focus. You take something to help you go to sleep. You take something to help you perform better in bed. You take this and this and this, and over time, you collect on them. You collect on them, and then when you step away from them, and we've seen this happen in our circle, right? And in terms of what addiction looks like as it's growing, is that you leave college, you're like, all right, I'm done with these types of drugs. I'm out of college. I'm working. It's cool. But somebody hasn't been able to shake that off. They're stuck in that habit of that vice, and it just keeps going and going. And when you have CVS, Walgreens, and whatever, just pumping drugs out into the street, making it easy, you can see why we can end up in a place now where we know a lot of people that have been addicted. We know a lot of people that have struggled with it. That's our generation, is knowing addicts, being familiar with AA and with rehabs and with interventions. We're not even 30 yet, and we've had to do interventions in our lives. That's crazy.
Big facts. Big facts. And I think a lot of what it comes down to is just remembering always that everything has a cost, right? Like your brain, you get into habits, you get into routines, right? Even as something as simple as coffee, right? In the morning, I need my caffeine. Woo, 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 don't talk to me until I've had my coffee, right? Your brain is calling out for these things, and it's just remembering that things have a cost, right? Even sugar, you crash off that, right? Adderall makes it difficult to eat. You might be up for a long time, makes it difficult to sleep, right? It's remembering that everything has a cost. And once you start chasing that feeling, chasing that neural response without awareness of that cost, sometimes that cost isn't physical. Sometimes that cost is the way that you interact with your peoples.
Mm.
Those things start to move in, right, on what your relationship is with the people that are close to you, because you're thinking about how to navigate the world with this thing on your back, this addiction, right? And that becomes really tough. How can we spot that as friends? How can we help?
Mr. Miles Xavier, I hate to cut this conversation, but I just received some crazy, crazy news that we are literally reacting to live right now. Miles, you've not seen this. I have not seen this either. Um, we're looking now at Virgil Abloh's Instagram page, And it reads, "We're devastated to announce the passing of our beloved Virgil Abloh, a fiercely devoted father, husband, son, brother, and friend. He is survived by his loving wife, Shannon, his children, Lo. For over 2 years, Virgil violently battled a rare aggressive form of cancer, cardiac angiosarcoma. He chose to endure his battle privately since his diagnosis in 2019, undergoing numerous treatments." What? That's crazy, bro.
Wow. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. Prayers, healing, love to the family. That's crazy.
That's
That's
crazy.
wow. Yeah. Hold up. Just moment of silence right quick, right?
That's wild. I didn't mean to cut you off like that. This was just news that just literally came in right now. That's, man, I'm so tired of Black deaths right now, bro. I really, prominent figures in Black culture are just leaving. That's insane. That's so sad.
Yeah. I mean that that hurts to hear. And it's yeah, following Dolph, following, you know, just a chaotic year. That's really hard to hear. Um, but to hear that it was a battle with cancer, to hear that he got an opportunity to put his art out there, that he got to be so prolific in the last couple of years. Like I love that. That takes on a whole new meaning to me. Shout out to his team for whether they knew or not supporting him and getting him to the point where he was able to yeah, just become a household name. Always lifting up like his accomplishments and what he was able to do. Uh, wanted to give him his full gravitas, his full weight for his contribution to the culture. But to put him in an excellent company, it reminds me of Chadwick, being that kind of taking us by surprise and being like, man, he, you kind of put some pieces together and maybe it makes sense in retrospect, but I wasn't expecting to lose Chadwick. I was ready for Black Panther 2. And to hear that he's battling this in this landscape of Hollywood, which is always picking and prying at the personal, and to hold it down and to not let that color his art and how it was received, like, you know, that's it just reminds me of that spirit. And yeah, I just wow.
Man, this is sad, bro. This is real sad. And thank you for being thank you for being the voice of emotion right now, man. It's a little, this sucks, such a powerful creative. The work that he did in Louis Vuitton over the time that he was there is quite incredible. If you understand the history of Virgil coming through from even before Off White being on the Kanye team, on the Yeezy team, and their joint passions, and that's when niggas was first introduced to Virgil, Don C, that type of crew, sending prayer and love to them, man. Sending prayer and love to them. Losing a friend like that's probably horrible. And then seeing the work that he did with Off White, man, that's huge. And talk about breaking down doors for Black creatives in the LVMH space, being the first Black head designer of a major luxury brand, and then killing it, killing it. Even some of the set designs that were taken on Squid Games came from some of the vision that Virgil and then put on for some of the showcases that they did under Louis Vuitton, man. So sad. Rest in peace. Prayers up. Uh, Prayers up, man. Love yours, dude. Love yours. Like, life is so short, dude. Life is so short. Um, yeah, man. Appreciate the people you have around you while you have them.
Word, and support your friends. Whatever your friends are trying to do, whatever their engagement is, whether it's their Instagram, whether it's their job, whether it's their art, their hobby, support your peoples, man, because You know, people are putting out their art, they're expressing themselves. You never know how much they're going through, and you never know how much every type, your like, your appreciation, that extra hug, that hello, that conversation, that check-in, just extend yourself that little bit further if you can, when you have that cup to pour from, because you never know how much that means to somebody else. You never know what somebody else is going through. I'm sure,
Mhm.
like, I think at times like these, like, I wonder how the people talking mad crazy about, you know what I mean, who just fire off tweets and about celebrities not knowing stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you never know. You never know what people are going through. So keep that in
That's what
mind.
everybody, man. That's what
Yeah.
everybody like. You you also have to realize that people are carrying the worst thing that someone has been through is the worst thing that someone's been through. You know what I mean? And being selfish is when you see the struggle that if I see the struggle that you're going through and I go, come on, Miles, that's nothing. You're going to be okay. That's just divorce. That's just being broke. But you don't understand the gravity of what that holds. And then there's people that are hiding medical issues, people that are hiding traumas, people that are hiding insecurities, and you're not even familiar with that, you know? So just like empathy, man. People got to lead with empathy. And the internet sometimes doesn't have space for that, especially in how people comment towards people that they look up to. It's very crass and very dismissive, dismissing the fact that everyone's a person that goes through feelings, emotions, and is carrying some heavy load on them.
Word. Well said, man.
Amen.
Well said.
Amen.